Hey guys, in this video we're going to finish up the enclosure, and first I had to mark a location to run my cabling through. This is on the back panel directly behind the column, and I just cut this out with a cutoff wheel. I then wrapped the entire enclosure with some 3/4 inch foam board that I picked up at my local Lowe's. It has a nice white on one side, so it looks really nice, and one sheet was enough to do the entire enclosure with a little bit of strategic cutting, as you can see here. I then marked and cut through the insulation for the access hole, and then wrapped it with a rubber weather stripping gasket material here, and that'll provide enough access for all my cabling. That pretty much finished up the enclosure and got it ready to move. Alright, so this is where the mill is going to be placed when we get done. I picked up a 2x4 sheet of 3/4 inch pressure treated plywood, cut in 3 equal widths. I glued and screwed these pieces together just to lift the mill up off a little bit higher. This gave me 2 1/4, 2 3/8 inch, and I took and marked the location to bolt the stand down to the base. I drilled it and bolted it. Now these particular lag bolts are some that I saved from one of the pallets that the lathe or the mill came on. I can't remember which one, but I saved them, so I reused them. I then took the pan and put it inside the enclosure. I marked and drilled out the hole locations. Alright, finished up cutting out the area there for running the cabling through. Put some rubber edging on there just to keep from cutting wires, and I have put all the insulation side panels on. Now one sheet did the whole thing, but as you see, I had to cut it strategically to get this last piece. If yours is going to be seen, then you may want to get 2 sheets so that you don't have the aluminum tape there, or use some kind of white tape if you want. But you can see, I mean, it turns out really good with the white backing. You can't really complain about that. If it was going to be seen, I would probably tape all these edges just to hold it in. But for the most part, the press fit works really well, and it keeps it nice and tight in there. So I don't think there's going to be any trouble. So now that I've got the base bolted on and it's sitting on the stand, I'm going to roll it into place and drop it down. And then once we do that, I'll be able to hoist the mill back up and put it in place. Hopefully everything goes smooth. I used some silicone caulk around all the holes, and then that gave me a nice tight seal. Moved it into place, and then proceeded to put the mill into place. I got it in there, and it did take a little bit, but it finally got it in there. And as you can see, it fits in there nicely. Worked out really well. I was pretty happy. Alright, so Chad dropped by yesterday, dropped off the polycarbonate. I mounted the hinges, and I was originally going to put a hinge up top and bottom, but I quickly realized that the bottom hinge, when the doors are shut, the bottom hinge is going to get full of chips. And I was kind of emulating Cliff's design of his compact enclosure with these doors, and he said that he only used the hinges at the top and just had a guide at the bottom. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Now these polycarbonate doors, because they're 3/8 inch thick, are pretty heavy. Okay, well, I've got the plexiglass doors on. What I'm going to do is, these need to be spaced out at the bottom, the thickness of the hinge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mill a groove in here, 3/8 inch thick, like so, and I'll bolt it to the enclosure. And then I'll put one in the center about 2 inches wide so the doors can come together, and then I'll put one here and one on the other side just to kind of guide it in there. And then the remaining piece will go in the center, and when the doors come together they can shut on that. And that should support the door from doing this, and also give it some support in the bottom when they're shut. So let's go out into the mini mill and we'll put a groove in here. So overall, I think the enclosure turned out really nice. The doors open up and give you a nice area to access, but if I need, I can just open the door to do machine setups, and that gives me complete access to whatever I'm working on. Now let me show you what I did with the Teflon blocks you saw me machining. So I added 3. These are 3/4 inches wide, and it's just a little groove. I mounted it with a couple of bolts. These are just stove bolts I had laying around. I think these are 1024. I drilled a hole through and then just tapped the block, and it's plenty secure. And so what that does is it keeps the plexiglass, just gives it a guide to go on, because there is no hinge at the bottom, and the only thing that really secures it is this top hinge with these bolts, and these are drilled and tapped into the polycarbonate. I can always add a longer screw and put a nut if I need to later on, but it should be fine. And so that also keeps the door from swinging when it's closed. And I added this center block just to kind of keep everything together, and so that works out really nice, I think. And then when I close it, so overall I'm pretty satisfied with the enclosure. Please comment, let me know what you think. So that wraps up this video. I want to thank Cliff for his inspiration in this design. Special thanks to Chad, dropping off the polycarbonate panels and helping me with his input on the design. It was finally nice to meet you and your family. Special thanks to Tony and Zack over at Forest Park Sheet Metal. Those guys did an excellent job fabricating the enclosure and really understanding what I wanted done from just some drawings. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to comment. Thanks for watching the video. Thumbs up if you like the video. Please subscribe, and most importantly, be safe.